Right, those of you that are staying, if you can take your seats, and can we shut the doors again at the back now, please? Because I am now going to introduce all our guests, an incredible young woman herself, and your host for the next session. Can we put our hands together, please, for Amber Sandhu?
Hello everyone, can you hear me all right? I've got quite a loud voice anyway. Good morning. Before we start today's panel, could we just show a little bit of love to Victor, because Victor was fantastic. You were amazing. I was sat over there watching you, and I think a 15-year-old Victor would be very, very proud. So I couldn't get up here without showing you a bit of love. So thank you for all your words as well, and you're doing some brilliant work. Well, how are we, ladies and gents? Are we all right? How was day one of Congress? Was it okay? Well, welcome to day two of the Co-op Congress 2026, and welcome to the first panel of the day in this room. This is the Future of Work discussion. As Rose lovely, she just introduced me. My name is Amber Sandhu. I am a radio and TV presenter by day. I work for the BBC and Sky Sports News. Essentially, I feel like I just talk for a living, but I feel like I have the best job in the world. I absolutely love it. And also, the lovely people at Co-op got me for this panel. I found out something very exciting. I am still in the youth demographic, apparently. I'm going to share my age. Yeah, I know. I can believe it myself. I am 27, turning 28 next month. I know. I don't look it. Thank you. But I'm sharing that with you because I will tell you why I feel so connected to this panel. Two people who would disagree and say that I'm definitely not part of that demographic are my two younger sisters. I've got two wonderful sisters, aged 20 and 15. I'm still yet to get that older sister cool status, even though I feel like my job's relatively cool. They don't think I'm the cool older sister. But I adore them. But am I worried about what the future looks like, whether they're going to get the opportunities that they want and get into the industries they want? Absolutely. So this is why I am so connected and I care so much about this panel specifically, but also the work that the cooperatives do as well. Victor touched on it really well, but we've seen the headlines. We've seen the high levels of youth unemployment. We've seen a record number of young people who are not in education, who are not in employment or any skills or training as well. So today's panel, we're going to be addressing that. We're going to be talking about it. We're going to be talking about the real issues and challenges that face young people. What can we do about it? And how do we make sure that we empower young people, that we champion them, we embrace them, and they don't get left behind, and they don't already feel defeated when they get to the age of 18. Does that sound okay? We're going to do about 45 minutes of questions with my wonderful four panellists, which I'm going to introduce in just a moment, and then I'm going to open up the floor because often I find the audience have the best questions. Should we do this then? Alrighty, well, we've already met her. Let's go from the right, CEO of Cooperatives. Please give a warm welcome to Rose Marley, everyone. Thank you, Rose, for being here. Our next panellist has come all the way from Dundee, so I feel like she deserves a big round of applause. She's a member of the Cooperative Youth Board. She's part of the Scottish Youth Parliament. She does so much. Please welcome Fatima Ishaq. I feel like you have a bit of a fan club in here, Fatima. Louis has already been mentioned today, but he's a youth lead at Cooperative UK. Give a round of applause to Louis Bernay. And last but not least, CEO of OneFamily. They are the UK's largest holder of the Child Trust Fund. CEO of OneFamily, Jim Islam. How are we, first of all? Because it's quite early on a Saturday morning. Have we had pastries? Have we had a coffee? We're feeling good?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, we've got 45 minutes or so with you until I open up the floor. I would love to go one by one, first of all, because I think this panel's so special because we've got so many different perspectives. You all do fantastic work, but very different. So one by one, just tell us, what does a day-to-day look like for you? What are your priorities? What are your expertise? I'll start with you, Rose. You're the big boss. You've got a lot of responsibilities.
Yeah, absolutely. And I am here. We should have had Simel, Esim with us today from the World Labour Organisation. And for those of you at the supper last night, sadly, she was not able to get on a flight because it was believed she didn't have the correct paperwork, which she did. Very frustrating, and also we're missing her here today on the panel, but also, as Debbie Robinson said last night, quite a sad indictment of our world at the moment. So I've got some slides to show from Simel because the the International Labour Organisation, they are very concerned with labour and migration throughout the world, and they are very close to the cooperative movement through the ICA and are a representative body of the United Nations. And then we should have also had Andrew Pakes MP with us, who sadly, he's poorly. He's been doing a lot of work within apprenticeships. So I will be representing their thoughts and ideas, which they've shared with me today. But also myself, I founded a social enterprise called Sharp Futures in Manchester, which was in 2011, and that is a social enterprise to bring diverse young talent into creative, digital and tech. So we employ a lot of young people at Sharp Futures. After 15 years, I've just stepped off the board this year, but I'm still an ambassador for Sharp Futures, and we've had over 500 young people into those industries. So I've got a lot of experience and understanding about the challenges, both from an employer's point of view and from our young people ourselves.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rose. Fatima, thank you first of all for making the journey. We feel very grateful to have you on the panel. Tell us a little bit about what you do and all the different projects you're involved with.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you asked about day-to-day. I don't know where to start, to be honest. I think I'd say I'm quite early into my career. I started off doing an economics degree. I decided why on earth would I want to do an economics degree, and now I'm about to qualify as a social worker. I think my sort of day-to-day, I'm involved in a lot of sort of community work, community activism. I sit on the youth advisory group with Cooperatives, which I'm very much enjoying. And I'm really passionate about sort of involving people in communities, involving young people in the sort of design, delivery, structure of communities, and that's where a lot of my work centres around sort of youth participation, around community engagement, and involving really like challenging and redistributing power. So yeah, it's great to be here.
Fantastic. Louis, you are youth lead at Cooperatives UK. I guess you're our voice on the ground. You're really hearing what young people are saying. I'm going to ask you about that a little bit later on. But what does your day-to-day look like?
Sure, yeah. So I've worked at Cooperatives UK for like a year now. A lot of it is sort of mapping. A lot of it's starting, initiating work. It's obviously it's a new role, and yeah, it's great to have a dedicated role. A lot of it. So I work in the membership team, so I'm speaking with our members regularly, trying to understand what members are doing, what they're not doing, the gaps in that need filling essentially as well. Understanding what they're doing, and then sort of working to link up what different people are doing. Taking learnings from certain members, helping other members. We get quite a lot of inquiries about, the most common inquiry I think the membership team get is we're struggling to engage members, and a lot of that is about new members and more diverse range of members, and young people obviously a really important group of that. So a lot of it's mapping. Once the sort of key mapping has been done, and on the charter, that's one of the key projects. We're going to be looking to sort of initiate some more sort of direct action in bringing the movement together, and yeah, that's a lot of it.
Brilliant.
Day to day, I'm not entirely sure. It's just a lot of looking at a screen for 7 hours. But
no, but you are very busy, so no, we'll get into more of what you do as well. Jim, CEO of OneFamily. Everyone will have heard of the Child Trust Fund, but if they haven't heard of OneFamily, tell us a little bit about it and your role.
Yes, thank you. So I lead OneFamily. We are a financial mutual based in Brighton. If you ever visit Brighton, do give me a call. It's an organization that we call ourselves a modern dynamic mutual, and I mean every word of it. We are often referred to as a fintech mutual as well, and that reflects the culture of the organization. And the reason for that is that, as Amber said, we are the largest child trust fund provider. But just to give you some context, since September 2020, every 1 out of 4 young person who has turned 18 is our customer. So we have a 25% market share, and therefore a very unique insight into this generation, particular Gen Z. But as an organization, we also offer other products. Creating access is very important for us. We are very passionate about that. Our vision is to inspire better futures. And in order to do that, we think we need to create greater access for insurance and investments and savings products. And that's what we do. We offer life insurance products that we do through our Beagle Street brand, which is part of the OneFamily group. Don't ask me, ask my brand expert online. You need to have a dog. So Beagle Street is the brand name that we use. But we also offer investment solutions, lifetime ISA in particular, very relevant, and we'll talk more about it later, but also other investment products. So yeah, that's what sort of, in terms of other activities we do, we feel we need to give a campaigning voice, especially to the younger generation. And that's something I'm very passionate about, and I do talk about it a lot.
Glad I'm sat next to Jim because he's the money man. Great. No, it is really great to have you all, and 4 very different perspectives as well. From what you've seen and your own work, what are the challenges that face young people then? Because you will have all seen different things, you'll have heard different things. So I'm going to open that up to all of you. So whoever would like to go first, for you, what are the main priorities and what are the challenges for young people?
If it's helpful, I'll just give you Simel's context because she's got the global perspective on that. So could we show Simel's slides, please? So like I say, the International Labour Organisation, sadly she's not presenting herself, but she talks about the cooperative model and its relevance to young people. So this is, like I say, all of these figures are global statistics, but what barriers do young people face when entering the labour market? And you can see there on the journey, around what their education is in the first place to the opportunity of what kind of work there is in the different countries. But we'd all recognise those red icons in the middle, skills mismatch. That's really challenging in the current environment in terms of our academic curriculum is set up for a world that doesn't really exist now in a lot of areas. We know what's happening with AI, so the skills that are needed are rapidly evolving and changing. Academic provides brilliant foundation and understanding on subject matters, but the actual technical skills that you need to learn on the job is the next problem, the experience trap, because it's really difficult to then get that experience to apply that knowledge, foundational knowledge, to the workplace. And there's limited opportunities and networks available for young people and limited access to finance and productive assets. But shout out to OneFamily team and the Child Trust Fund generally, because that is where I've seen the education come through for young people. So yeah, the global market, youth unemployment rates at nearly 13%, which is, shocking and the highest it's ever been. And in some countries, it's 3 to 4 times higher. There was a report out in the UK about our NEETs in the UK. So this 20% of those young people, 20% of their NEET, which stands for not in employment, education or training. But when that report came out in the UK, it's also missing something really important that we were talking about, the hidden youth, the young people that won't be on those figures because they've got a job in a bar or because he's at home and the parents are helping them out. So it's actually much worse than we're seeing in reality. Louis and I were talking about this statistic globally, like obviously cultures are different throughout the world. So you can see globally it's young women who are suffering, but the experience in the UK is equally as bad for young men as well. So the quality of work matters. There's a lot of quality challenges across the world. And again, in the UK, we can see that there many young people are in concentrated and low-paid and precarious jobs. The hospitality sector is where a lot of young people are getting trained. Something really frustrating in the UK at the moment, done with the right intent, is the government's intervention on workers' rights and employment levels for young people. So it now means that if you're 18, you will get paid the same as somebody who's experienced, and that's a real barrier. So even though the intent was there, that is a real challenge, that young people's entry levels have also now been squeezed even further. Let's say we've got this technical transformation. Our schools and education systems are not set up for the world that we're in. Our schools are based on an industrialised system from, 180 to 200 years ago now. If you think about everybody sitting in a row, facing the same way and moving to a bell, that's a factory. who works in factories, not the majority of the population. So we've got some real challenges with quality. And then there's the economic and demographic shifts, because this kind of affected by economic uncertainty, but climate transition, that's where we're going to see the most migrants coming through over the next decade. This is one slide I don't need to share with all of you. What is a cooperative? But why the cooperative model is relevant to young people. Again, I think it's fairly obvious to most people in the room, particularly around worker co-ops, when you have a voice that counts, and Victor's, made that point, feeling invisible. We don't feel invisible in a worker co-op, because you get those rights and say. I'm going to flick past that, because just so that everyone else gets a chance to talk. But, cooperatives do contribute to youth development, either in employment, entrepreneurship. This is something we really want to see more of in the UK, and we are talking to the UK government about if you are unemployed, what about being skilled up into learning how to start a community cooperative? Because you'd be gaining the skills from doing that rather than doing nothing. So there's a lot of opportunity in entrepreneurship there. Education, we all know cooperatives aren't on the curriculum, and that's something that needs addressing, and there's low awareness of that. Engagement, Louis is going to talk about how we're trying to put together a national engagement plan for cooperatives to provide young people as many opportunities as possible. We should have had a work experience with us for 2 days actually, but unfortunately she was unable to make it. But that's the kind of opportunity that we want to be able to offer as many opportunities to young people as possible. And then, like I say, this issue around equality, well, in our economic report, that gender gap in leadership of women is really clear. We've not got the figures across co-ops for young people, but it's something we're going to look at. And like I say, I'm just going to talk about a couple of the youth cooperatives in action, because as always, the UK has got a leading cooperative in this arena, which is Outlandish. So like I say, they're a worker cooperative, and they're funded by young technology professionals, and they develop digital platforms, websites and technology solutions. And I'm delighted to say that we'll be having a representative of Outlandish joining the Cooperatives UK board in July. So we're doing every thing we can. Again, Louis will talk about it, but for example, the Youth Advisory Group are coming to the Cooperatives UK Strategy Days just to provide that experience. And there's some great models, in Moldova, the beekeeping cooperative, and in Turkey, the Youth Deal Cooperative. But there's not many. And the other thing I'd say from last year, it's not about always creating cooperatives for young people, it's allowing opportunities for young people in all cooperatives is the bit that I do think we can crack. So what's holding young people back? Not themselves, really. It's all these other factors, whether it's limited access to capital and access to the market. So what can we do as a movement to enable and support that? And like I say, what needs to change is that education awareness, the enterprise support, and youth leadership and participation. So please be a part of that change that we want to see. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an understanding about what's going on globally. I'd just add to that from the experience I have from Sharp Futures as well. There's a generational kind of lack of empathy, I'd say, between the generations at the moment, because we've all experienced really, really different entry into work. So you've got a lot of kind of older colleagues, you've not earned your stripes, where are you, what you doing? You need to work harder, that kind of rhetoric. Whereas younger people, we've been telling our young people for so long that they won't have a job for life. Well, they're not looking for one. So, if somebody goes into an organisation and the organisation doesn't meet with their needs and their skills and actually their beliefs, this is where cooperatives have an opportunity to get the best talent. Young people, will not stay. There's real high turnovers of young people coming into the workplace, and I think that's really misunderstood. But again, if you look at the values of cooperation, it should be something we're trying to tackle, create that empathy and find a way for all generations to cooperate together to solve the issues that our young people are facing.
gutted that Simel couldn't be here, but Rose, appreciate you going through those slides because I think that set a good foundation for what this conversation is all about. There was a slide on there, I think it was the second slide, which kind of gave you the timeline as to, you know, when a young person leaves school, but the kind of barriers along the way. I want to come to you, Fatima and Louis. Does that align, everything that Rose has just mentioned there and everything on that PowerPoint, does that align with what you're hearing and what young people are going through at the moment?
Yeah, I would say definitely. I was really struck to a point on that PowerPoint actually about the quality of work and about decent work mattering because, yeah, I think for myself, for a lot of young people, they find themselves in sort of lower paid jobs. I think just taking on anything to get the experience because without the experience, you know, there is no sort of opportunity and it's really hard getting your sort of foot in the market. But I've been drawn to a few sort of statistics recently. I think it was Young Minds that had reported that I think it was like 90% of young people are worrying about earning enough money to support themselves, and young people as young as 10 are worrying about the sort of cost of living. And I think, yeah, when we think about that, young people entering the workplace, one of the big issues I think about is young people's mental health as well. Sort of young people with a probable mental health condition, the sort of rates have been rising since I think about 2017, and it's been rising most notably in the sort of 17 to 19 age category, which we know is when young people are facing big transitions from school into employment, into university, apprenticeships, and yeah, I think the sort of issue is kind of twofold for me, right? I think, yeah, I think so many young people are struggling with their mental health and the system just isn't designed to support with that. I think, you know, we speak a lot about young people not in employment, education and training, as you mentioned earlier, but I think it was the Milburn review that found that actually young people experience mental health issues years before they actually left education and work and training. It's just that the system with, you know, how long our waiting lists are, they didn't get that support in time, and eventually it did get to that sort of crisis point where they weren't able to work. So I think for me the solutions are sort of twofold. It's like we need more investment in our mental health systems, we need better pathways for young people and informal pathways as well. I think for me and for a lot of my friends, those sort of informal pathways like sort of youth work, community development, like you mentioned me being in the Scottish Youth Parliament earlier, all these sort of opportunities are probably the ones that have been most impactful for me entering the workplace, and I think we need more of that for young people. And we also need, you know, beyond individual solutions, we also need that sort of systemic change, I suppose. We need more sort of investment in young people. We need sort of better quality work and conditions, which I guess is where the co-op model can really help as well. Yeah.
Louis, for you?
Just really to add to that, I think isolation, and when we're talking about mental health, isolation is one of the most important things there. Where we're talking about the intersection between young people and cooperatives and what cooperatives can offer young people and what young people can offer cooperatives, belonging is a massive thing. Autonomy, ownership, and belonging for me are the three massive, really important things between the age of 18 and 24. Talk about the quality of work. There is a lack of work. I know we're not talking too much about AI today. There's been a lot of AI. Everyone is always talking about AI. But quality of work is degrading massively. And when we're talking about ownership, I think that's a really important thing. I'm not saying that the 80s was particularly good for employment. We all know that that wasn't the case. But the rungs on the ladder up from, okay, I'm going to get a job, I'm going to work hard, and I'm going to get a house, it was much more likely, right? Buying a house is something that is almost unimaginable now. So people are craving ownership, and I think that's where cooperatives really come in, is imagine a parallel situation where there's a young person working for just a normal organization and there's a young person working for the cooperative. There's a dual benefit of them working for the cooperative. So in both situations, you're gaining a skill. So it might be like a digital agency, or you might be working in retail. But in the cooperative, you've got this sort of added thing on top where you're learning about democracy, you're learning about belonging, you're given responsibilities you might not be given, especially if you're in a flat ownership structure like a worker co-op. You're given these responsibilities that maybe you would never be given in another organization. And I think that's really the important thing, and that sort of does tie into mental health as well. We're talking about young people, we need to be empowering young people, that's a big buzzword, but a cooperative, it generally is a space where young people are given that environment to really sort of come into themselves.
Yeah. Jim, I have a question for you. just following on from what Fatima and Louis just said about kind of the prospect of buying a house and having those kind of financial goals. And Fatima spoke about the fact that people are thinking about, you know, the cost of living, how are they going to live from such a young age. How do we help and how do we empower young people financially when it feels like they've got this kind of burden, there's very limited opportunities? How do we empower them financially?
Yeah, absolutely, and indeed, we've done our own research, and the messages are absolutely consistent, and that's what we are hearing from young people. The challenges are around really cost of living, financial resilience, lack of social mobility, and the pace of change. As Justin Trudeau once said, the pace of change has never been this fast, yet it will never be this slow again. And that's what they are dealing with. But what we also find is this is a generation that is very enterprising. There is that entrepreneurial spirit in this generation. So we know from our own research that 57% have had a side hustle at some stage, right? Now, unfortunately, there's some underlying data which tells us that a third of them had to do it to make ends meet. But this is a generation that is really working hard. And what they don't need is fixing, they need backing. And this is where I think financial resilience and financial solutions are absolutely critical. So one of the great things about Child Trust Fund as a product was that it was offered to 6.3 million children who were born. And then at the age of 18, they would get a leg up. We've found and we've tracked how that money was used. So contrary to any sort of popular beliefs that, oh, they're probably not responsible, they are a very responsible generation. We've done our own research with teenagers, and you said, all right, if you get 5,000 at the age of 18, what are you going to do with it? 25% said they'll use it to pay for university costs. 36% said they'll put it into savings. 40% said they'll buy a car. But with £5,000, this is not a fancy car. We're talking about a car that they can use. And again, we see that when a child trust fund matures, these individuals are using it to pay for their first deposit into a house, buy a lifetime ISA. And it's a product where they can contribute and then they can use it to buy their first home. There's a 25% top-up that the government does as well. So that's a product that young people are using to buy their home. They're also using it for essential equipment, and that's also very important. So I think one of the things that has happened with Child Trust Fund is that it created a stake in the future. It allowed conversations around the table around long-term investing, and that's very important. And we see some of these habits emerge that I think there's a greater propensity to think long-term and to invest more in this generation. So having a financial product definitely does help. Now, clearly, what we should also keep in mind is that along with the ability to buy a first home, as they progress, the reality is that the safety nets that an individual used to have in the past, they are fraying. I talk about threadbare safety nets, and the reality is that fiscal challenges are such that individuals have to take greater responsibility for their own financial protection. And this is where financial resilience is very important. And this is where life insurance products come into play as well. So what we did was we actually went and acquired a life insurance company because we thought we needed to take that out and widen the access. Now, we could have taken ages to build it ourselves, but we thought, given the needs of the generation, we need to go and buy another life insurance provider, which was very digital. Because what we also know that this is a generation that wants to engage digitally. The language that we use to communicate is different. If you go to our website, if you look at our ads, you will genuinely feel the difference that, we are gearing our communication to the younger generation. So I think it's a combination of financial solutions, financial education, which combined together build the confidence that they need to succeed. And I think there has to be a greater focus on that.
Thank you, Jim. I'm also conscious that I don't want to make this completely negative, because it's not all negative, because there are some brilliant schemes out there, including apprenticeships, a word that we hear a lot of. But we were speaking before we came on stage, weren't we, Rose, about the fact that there are so many brilliant apprenticeships, but the demand is so high because a lot of young people are deciding not to go to university for a number of reasons. A question for all the panel: why are apprenticeships such a powerful tool, and how valuable are they? So a question for all of you, perhaps Fatima as well, Louis, and to you as well, Rose. No, to you as well, Rose. Sorry, no, go on, yeah.
Well, the challenge we've got, and I'd like Louis to talk more about the work that Louis is doing around an apprenticeship idea that we've got. But, and I know you want to be positive, but there is a negative to apprenticeships, which there are not enough of them to meet the demands. So for the million university places that become available every year, there's about 600,000 apprenticeships in the UK, of which 50% of those are going to over 25-year-olds who are often already in the workplace. So shockingly, apprenticeships are now harder to get than getting into Oxbridge. So we've got so apprenticeships are brilliant, but we do need the government to look at and enable. I know, get some brilliant societies in the room, including our co-op, and the apprenticeship schemes they've had are really challenged by the new rules around apprenticeships. So they are brilliant, but there are not enough of them. But I will pass to Louis.
I'll talk a little bit about the things that we're sort of thinking about as a reaction to thinking about how we get young people when we create the pathways for them to come into the cooperative movement. We have been looking at a sort of rotational apprenticeship, and we've talked a little bit about this at the retail conference as well. The idea of that, if you're not familiar with it, I think it's based from construction, but over a year, say X period, you would rotate 3 months, 3 months, 3 months, 3 months. So you might move from a digital agency like Outlandish. You might then go to a marketing department of our co-op. You might then go and help build a community share offer at a community energy organization. And then the fourth one, I don't know, take a pick. It could be anyone. You could go and work at OneFamily. The idea is that there's enough level of they're in so many different environments that a young person who doesn't really know what they want to do yet, they're really getting those experiences. They're really getting deep into these organizations that rely on different mindsets and people with energy, and they don't often have loads of resources, so that you're then providing the resources to these co-ops. But they're also learning so much from that. And so say that one person might go, okay, I loved my bit in community energy, I want to go, that's going to be my career path. Or I loved working for OneFamily, or I love working for... So it's kind of, it's got the breadth. We would obviously have to get it right about the breadth, but the idea is that you have a centralized body, so I don't know who that would be, maybe that we would work out a way that would be Cooperatives UK. And then we're sort of deploying young people to our members. Because obviously there is the reality, we're not talking all positively as well, the reality is that co-ops aren't taking on young people because it takes a lot of resource. Yeah. And it's a risk. You don't always get good things that come out of it, that's the reality. So we kind of need to mitigate those barriers, and there needs to be something that mitigates those barriers. So I think that what we've been talking about and what we're trying to develop, and that's kind of feeds into one of the education proposals on the charter, is this scheme that really supports young people, it supports our members, because they're diversifying their membership, which is a key thing that they ask for help with. And then it's also sort of, it's helping the movement grow, because we're doing a lot of outreach that isn't really done at the moment.
What are the alternatives then, Louis, in terms of, there are apprenticeships, you've spoken about how valuable the cooperatives are as well, of course. What are the alternatives in your opinion?
The alternatives to? In
terms of if apprenticeships that, from the report that I read a few weeks ago, young people are applying for jobs, they're either not hearing back, or it's the age-old argument that we haven't got enough experience. So it's getting past that barrier. So
yeah.
What do you think the alternative is?
I guess there are lots of opportunities in the co-op space, but there's also, I think the slide deck, it touched on entrepreneurship, and I think that's a really interesting thing. As Fatima will know, I mean, we were at Blagrave. The Blagrave Trust is a fund that's moving to work into community development. They had their youth-led change day. There was about 150 young people that are really active. They're starting their own charities. They're starting their own community interest companies. but the co-op model is not something that it's never met them at any point.
Yeah.
Young people are doing things, they're organising, and they're taking over spaces and developing spaces, but there needs to be a sort of support mechanism for that.
Yeah.
So I guess people, like Jim was just talking about side hustles, which I always find is a really funny term, because it sounds ridiculous, it sounds like a slang, but obviously that is actually the official term. Young people are sort of doing things themselves because the things aren't there for them, and I think that's kind of an alternative, which I think there are lots of things that this movement can do to support.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurship is alive in the co-op space, and I think, especially if you're looking at young people taking over spaces, that's a massive thing. Like, I've got just some stats about the decimation of our third spaces, that since 2010, 1,243 youth centres have shut, 800 libraries, and MVT, who MV Music Venues Properties are a member of ours, 35% of music venues have shut since 2010. So these third spaces that young people need to thrive, to grow, to be employed, to develop themselves, and to also have fun and learn about life, those spaces are rapidly declining. And I think there is this really exciting sort of alternative space where young people are collectively, which is kind of a big word here, they're collectively doing something together and building these spaces. And that's, for me, like, the most exciting part of my job, is seeing these young people sort of crop up, being like, we want to take over this community centre, we want to take over this music venue. So yeah, that's sort of.
I appreciate that a lot, Louis. I want to look ahead to the future of work in just a second, but Jim, take the finance hat off for a second and put your parent hat on, because have we got any parents in the room? Any parents? Stick your hand up for those parents. Oh, quite a few then. You're a parent to young adults, aren't you? What sort of advice are you giving them, and what sort of challenges are you seeing in your own children? Because I'm sure a lot of people in our audience are going to be able to relate to some of the things that you perhaps hear from them and what they're telling you.
Yeah. I think the kind of things that I would say is that I think with the fast-changing world, I mean, I'll put a positive aspect, and there is some data around it as well. But let's start off with the key message. I think one of the things I'm keen on is ensuring, financial education, and there is some progress being made on bringing it into the curriculum. But this is something that's not taught at school, has not been taught traditionally at school. So building that kind of understanding of financial products is important, because we like it or not, to solve a lot of these problems, we need assets backing them. And this is where finance comes in. If you want to train yourself, well, you need money for it, and therefore, if you have a product which enables you to do that, that's important. So I think money actually goes hand in hand with social mobility and social inclusion as well. And this is where I think mutuals and cooperatives can play a very important role. So that's something that I talk about in terms of building that financial education and financial confidence as well. One of the first things I did with my son, who's 20, is to get him to open a lifetime ISA so that he could save for his first home. The other thing I talk about is that traditionally, we have thought of in our a career pathway as job 1, job 2, job 3. I think in the future it will be career 1, career 2, career 3. Somebody who's in their 20s right now, they could be working until 2070s, 2080s. And through that time, they will have to retrain themselves into a new career. That's the nature of the world we are getting in. And to give you some positive aspects, I mean, we talked about side hustle. Actually, AI enables that. AI enables that solo entrepreneurship. And I think that democratization of business will happen on the back of it. So that's a positive aspect. And there's some other macro trends, and let's not ignore them. The reality is that the old order is not coming back. So countries will have to spend more on defense and cyber as well. That's opportunity. Countries will also have to spend in terms of progress towards net zero. That's also an opportunity. People are living longer. For the last 50 years, life expectancy has increased by 5 hours every day. That creates challenges. People living longer means we'll need social and health workers. That's also an area where we'll see growing demand. Infrastructure renewal is a key subject, and that is something countries will have to address. That creates engineering jobs. So there are a number of areas that we can actually see that there will be increased demand. The reality is that anybody who's in a primary school right now, 65% or some figure like that will be in jobs that don't exist today. But I don't think anybody's saying that there will be a big reduction in jobs. It's just that there will be different kind of jobs. And this is where I think the need for agility, adaptability, flexibility, and continuous learning and training, that's my message. That's the world we're getting into.
Jim, you've teed me up quite nicely for my next question, which is kind of the future. And you mentioned about AI there, about jobs not existing. What do the next 5, 10 years look like there when it comes to work, when it comes to opportunities? Louis mentioned AI, so did you, Jim, about it being a risk but also an opportunity. And in terms of that risk, it taking those kind of early career jobs that young people would be going for. So I'll come to you, Rose. What does the future look like?
That's the challenge, isn't it? Nobody is entirely sure. And, you know, there is the reality that automation takes out the low-skilled entry-level jobs, which is where young people find pathways. So that's what we're seeing at the moment in terms of the impact in AI. And the other challenge around AI is that the majority of AI, in fact all of the AI development and a lot of our tech is owned by kind of exploitative, extractive organisations that are monopolising the space. So AI and its capability has an incredible potential, but not in the wrong hands. So I'd say the same again as we've been talking about a lot at Cooperatives UK, and we heard Jan talk about last night, like at what point are we going to start taking control of this as a movement? Because everybody's firefighting and in the right now, are we going to be sat here in 5, 10 years time, like again, Debbie said last night, saying, oh, we missed that one. We're watching it happen. Now, if you add that to the fact of what Louis, and I'm sure our other young people will be testament to, they will be the ones that can build this and design this fairly and ethically if we give them ownership and control and a community to deliver it from. So there is a real opportunity. The huge problem in tech is that the way you fund tech is through venture capital predominantly. You have to sink so much money into it. So doing that from a cooperative model, asking members to invest in something that they don't know what it is yet, even if it was just a small membership subscription, like we don't know what it is, we don't know what it'll do, we don't know why we need it. That's quite a hard ask for anybody to take a punt on. But I think we've got to find a way to solve it. So the future has a lot of opportunity, yes, a lot of challenge. But isn't this what the cooperative movement does and exists for? So where are the new pioneers? When you look at the video of the 28 pioneers, there's loads of young people in there. Like more, I think it's just under 50% of them were under the age of 25, the pioneers. So it's like when you said, Louis, we say words like empowerment. Well, where is it? You know, where's those opportunities? You know, it's really risky, but, you know, where's the young people in your AI departments? Because they're going to come up with the ideas.
What about for you, Fatima? What is the vision in terms of the next 5, 10 years? And how do we make sure that, and I put it frankly, AI isn't taking all of the jobs that young people want to get into the industry in those early careers?
Yeah, if it's okay, I'm going to move a little bit away from AI, and I'm going to talk about sort of green skills and green careers, which I think is really important as well. I think as we've talked about, as we all know, I think young people, we aren't following that sort of traditional, that sort of stereotypical career path. You know, we aren't joining one organisation and staying there and climbing this sort of career ladder. I think for most young people, I think what's more important is that social impact. It's making a difference. It's having a voice, having influence. And I think we see this sort of emergence or emerging new sort of green careers and green opportunities. And I think it is a real opportunity. But I think right now we have a sort of green skills gap between across the UK, which I think is something, I think it's a really unique and a really exciting opportunity actually for young people to learn, to get involved with. And I know more sort of employers, more organisations, even more sort of universities are sort of clinging on to that. I think there was a report, I think by the Co-op Foundation, I think it was called I've got it written down, the Gen Zero report, which found that 73% of young people feel a sort of personal sense of responsibility to reach the net zero targets. So it's something young people are really interested about, but I think there is still this sort of stereotype about, you know, green careers being too niche, about not knowing what a green career is. I think if you asked me a year ago, I probably couldn't have even told you what sort of a green career is or what that would look like. And I think particularly for young people from sort of underserved communities, I think they may not feel seen within that space. They, you know, there aren't any sort of role models, there aren't opportunities, there aren't any pathways. So I think that's a really unique opportunity both to provide both sort of formal and informal pathways to green careers, and to show young people that they are sort of capable, that it is possible, and that this is an area they can really sort of take leadership and ownership in. And again, I think that's where sort of co-ops are best placed to get involved and to support with that sort of democratic leadership.
Thank you, Fatima. Anything to add from your perspective at all, Louis?
Just to add to that as well, a shout out to Unity, which is our co-op in Octopus Energy. It's a joint venture. They have a volunteer platform not for young people, for everyone, because community energy relies quite heavily on volunteering initially. And 60% of the people that sign up or are put into placement in community energy are young people, 18 to 25. So there is that demand, and people are seeing that, and I think that's a really exciting, especially with the local power plan, which we're going to be talking about next. Well, I won't be, there will be a panel next. There's definitely, and Fatima also has been working for the Co-op Foundation Green Opportunities Fund as well, which, do you want to talk a little bit about?
Yeah.
You're a young grant maker, aren't you?
Yeah,
Fatima?
yeah,
So
yeah.
tell us a little bit about that and the foundation.
So I've been working with the Co-op Foundation, with the Future Communities Collective, which is a group of young people basically sort of working directly alongside the Co-op Foundation and influencing decision-making around funding. So I think the Co-op Foundation, as part of their sort of youth participation strategy and the sort of general direction of change, they wanted to really involve young people in decision-making. So they thought, let's sort of delegate decision-making for a piece of funding. So I was involved with the Future Communities Fund, which was all about sort of supporting justice experienced young people, sort of reintegrating them back into the communities. But another fund I've been working on is the Green Opportunities Fund. Based on the findings of the report I mentioned, the Gen Zero report, I think it's called, we found that, you know, there is a real sort of gap in green skills and knowledge, but there is real sort of opportunity, and I think it is a real sort of area of priority. So we have quite a big pot of funding that we open for applications for organisations supporting young people to develop green skills, supporting young people sort of understand what a green career is and to develop sort of pathways into that. So whether it's like digital campaigns, whether it's you know, work experience or placement opportunities. I think this fund is really exciting because I think it will sort of open the doors for young people, and I think it will raise a lot more awareness, particularly in sort of underrepresented communities, about what a green career actually is and, you know, how accessible it is.
Thank you. I love doing panels like this, but as always, time flies. We barely touch the surface. But I do want to take this opportunity to open up the floor. So if there's any questions, if you've been thinking, if you've been noting anything down, just stick your hand up and tell us your name, your title, and if you've got a question directed to an individual, or perhaps to the whole panel, that would be great. Oh, we've already got 2, lovely. 3 even, thank you. Yeah, just tell us your name and your title, introduce yourself, please, thank you.
Hi, I'm Emily. I'm from Simel Whole Foods. We're a worker co-op in Yorkshire. So much what the panel said resonated with me, so no time to go into all of that now. I guess a couple of points that struck me. So SUMA's been going for nearly 50 years, and I want SUMA to go for another 50 years. So this isn't just about what we need to do for young people. We need young people if our co-op's going to keep going. We need to really do that. Our demographic is skewing older, even though we have some younger members. So I just think that's something we need to bear in mind. One of the things I do is talk to some of the students from our local universities about SUMA and the co-op model and all of that. And it's really striking that they've never heard of this stuff. They don't know anything about it. It is not part of their knowledge. So I guess my question for the panel is, what more can we do to make the co-op model something that people, young people, see as an option for some of these career paths that you've been talking about?
Thank you, Emily. Thanks for kicking us off. Who would like to take that one?
Shall I?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
And then
our
we'll go
own
to
experience. So I think, first of all, I think it's important to point out that being a cooperative and mutual now is really a strength when it comes to recruitment. We have seen that. I think in particular post-COVID, we have seen a definite shift towards people preferring purpose-led organizations. And we have found that it's actually become easier for us to recruit young people. Or also it goes in with the whole employee value proposition because they want to be part of a purpose-led organization, but also what else we do. So we've talked about mental health support, etc. So all of these things together. So I think we are already seeing that trend shifting, and I think that will carry on. But I agree we need to talk more about it. One of the things that I'm passionate about is talking about it with a unified voice. We use lots of various different terms in the country to define a mutual or cooperative. Well, there are two terms there for you, then building societies, friendly societies, and so on. So I think we need to come up with some sort of a single, easy to understand definition that people can relate to.
Thank you. And Rose, to you.
Yeah, just there is a little bit of hope. The government, the Department for Business are now looking to invest. It came out really strongly in the call for evidence that all of you inputted into, that this was one of the biggest issues outside of capital raising for cooperatives was the lack of awareness in the education space. So they did a little trial with the growth companies across the UK to put some money into train. So when you go to start a business, it's not there, the business advice isn't there, it's not often even talked about as an opportunity. So they are looking to have a national programme of business support. That doesn't help, Emily, like you say, with the bit where from, school and into, college and universities, that's not there. Now, Cooperative College, and I was just seeing if Izzy was still around from the Co-op party, they did have a campaign to put co-ops on the curriculum, which we're hoping to pick up from the Cooperative College's kind of non-financial assets dissemination as they close down the charity. But the key thing really is I find it really, and if you do go, there's one little win, if you do go on the government website now and look up different types of businesses, you do end up at our Cooperatives UK page with all that business support on there. But one of the things I find quite a challenge is that we shouldn't have to tell and teach. People should know what a cooperative is because they're in one and they feel one and they rely on one and the parents use one for support. So there's something about the culture of cooperatives in schools. In schools, like when they're teaching business enterprise, they'll have a cake sale for charity, and we don't use it in schools to show, for example, what are the challenges that you've got in a school and how can we work cooperatively to do that and how can we trade against that. So I think it's not just about being on the curriculum, and Little Pioneers, our co-op, formerly Mid-Counties, do that brilliantly, in the nursery schools where the 4-year-olds get to cooperatively decide what they're doing for the rest of the afternoon and get to decide what they're having for the lunch together. So I'd just say a big shout out to the fact that teaching it is one thing, living it, breathing it and making it part of our culture is the critical thing.
Thank you, Rose. And thank you for that question. Have we got another one? We've got, brilliant. Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Jane Charlesworth. Is it working?
Yes, it is now. Sorry, what was your name?
My name's Jane Charlesworth. So I work for Birmingham Friends of the Earth. I had actually quite a similar question to that, so I'll change tack a bit, which is that I'm wondering, in terms of co-ops recruiting young people for work experience or recruiting younger directors, so which is Birmingham Friends of the Earth just did a call for new directors and specifically tried to target younger people, and we've recruited some really great younger people to our board, which is amazing. What resources exist? This is probably a question for the Co-ops UK folks. Is there a directory that, let's say, Birmingham Friends of the Earth or other co-ops could sign up to say, hey, we take work experience placements for students or even school kids? Are there ways that we can sign up to specifically recruit younger people as directors to our co-ops?
Quick answer is not yet, but we are working on it. So if you go on our co-op directory, there is now a directory of the 7,000 co-ops across the UK by region, type and sector. And we've had a lot of request and demand for a kind of brokerage, almost like what people are looking for and what people can provide. So that's the next thing that the Digital First team are working on at Cooperatives UK. When I say not yet, there's not a digital version, but there's an amazing team at Cooperatives UK, many here this weekend, that will take that call and provide those opportunities. I don't know if, Louis, you want to say what we're doing?
Yeah, I guess so. Right now, we have a network of young people, and so we can obviously manually share that information, but the idea is that, yeah, brokerage, we're looking at hopefully getting a situation where people can advertise a position, a director position, a volunteer position, and then young people can come on that website and just come on our website and just find that. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks so much. I think we had a question just at the front here, our final one for the panel, and maybe one over there as well. Yeah, we'll get to you.
Hello?
Yeah, good.
Irene Kirkman from our co-op.
Hi.
I spent much of my career working on 14 to 19 education and vocational development, and it frustrates me that we still haven't got it right in this country. And clearly, the career pathways are changing very quickly. I was a bit alarmed by Rose's statistic that only, I think you said 50% of the use of apprenticeships go to older people. And that's because the government successively have allowed the apprenticeship levy to be hijacked, if you like, for continuing professional development of existing staff. My question is, do you think, Rose, or anyone else on the panel, if the government were to tweak that and put a limit on apprenticeship levy and say you've got to use it largely at the entry level, make the maximum age 30, that would leave employers in a bit of a bind in terms they'd have to find funding for their own internal CPD, but do you think that would help?
Oh, yeah, 100%. And, you know, if we had, a government that was kind of aligned to that development thinking of young people, that would definitely help. One of the things that we were talking about, weren't we, earlier is something that we've been working on in Greater Manchester with our current mayor, Andy Burnham, which is around creating halls for apprentices. So it's called Our House. It's a co-op, a whole bunch of us, Louis and young people working with employers and training providers. So like, can we provide an opportunity for young people to be able to move out of the house and gain that experience in the same way that students can? But deliver, taking on an apprenticeship. And that was where we started to find these figures and challenges around that. So, yeah, the levy does need an overhaul, because the thing is about the levy, like, a bunch of money's in the levy to get your money out of the levy. It's very expensive, and that money would be better used for different types of professional qualifications and CPD, but recognising what they are for and not putting them all under, like you said, the banner of an apprenticeships. And again, the rules have just changed, so you don't get as much funding now for young people to take on the apprenticeship. So all of that needs real consideration. And student loans, just outrageous, shocking. Yeah. Don't even get me started.
I think more widely as well, nothing is incentivizing organisations to take on young people, and I think that's the big thing. So Rose talked earlier about the minimum wage, and if you flatline the minimum wage, obviously there are parts of that are positive, people are being paid more, but it doesn't incentivize an organisation to take on an 18-year-old if there's a 28-year-old going for the same job and the same pay. They're always going to go for the 28-year-old because they have more life experience, almost always. And I think so then I think there was a government policy to pay an organisation £1,000 to take on the younger person. And so, yeah, anything that incentivizes people to take, it's very simple. If you incentivize an organisation to take on young people, they probably will take on young people. So I think, yeah, policy, like a suggestion like that probably definitely would make a big change.
Thank you for your question. Final one for today's panel is just in the corner there. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks so much. It's Debbie Williams from the National Members Council of the Co-op group. Really interesting, and I have just a couple of comments, I guess, but also a question for you all at the end. And it's that, so I come from a place of, I was a store manager for 25 years, so employed young people, made it, a mission to employ young people and get them coming through. But it was quite hard with legislation and that side of things. and also a mum of 19-year-old and 24-year-old. And I see that where the, cooperatives and the future of work, they're interdependent, aren't they? And we're answering and raising a lot of questions that we hear in we probably hear them in lots of different sessions that we'd be in. So I agree with how to make it simple, that unified language, that language that's compelling and real and sort of speaks to young people, but also doesn't alienate those who have been in the cooperative movement for a long time. And that's something across the board that feels like we need to really address. And I guess, how do we do that as a collective? So what's the so what? And I'd love to know from the panel, what's the so what? If you could get everybody in this room to sign up and say, actually, this is what we're going to go back and do. This is what we're going to collectively maybe get behind. What would it be? What would you ask of this room, taking back to their individual co-ops?
That's a really good question to end with, so I'm going to come to all of you for that. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I think we've said as Debbie, Louis is actively looking for people who want to contribute to pathways for young people, whatever that is, whether that's a work shadowing opportunity, whether to a full apprenticeship or even a part of an apprenticeship where you might have seasonal work, for example, where you need to take people on for a small amount of time, and can we match that with other types of seasonal work in other sectors to provide a whole apprenticeship. So absolutely, we're looking, the call out, please see Louis, if you've got any ambition at all to help create pathways for young people, we want to collate all that together with the associated kind of funds and start offering those pathways.
Yeah, I would say, just to add to that, I think the pathways are so important, but I think don't just stop there. I think investing in young people's development throughout, I think, in support schemes and leadership programs and peer mentoring and peer sharing spaces. I think for young people entering the workplace, the challenges don't just stop there, right? Because when you're in a new role, like I've currently just started a new role, and there's the imposter syndrome, there's the feeling of uncertainty, there's the challenges of adapting to a new sort of working environment and all the challenges with that. So my sort of piece of reflection would be to think about how you could sort of more meaningfully engage and support with sort of your young people too.
Yeah, I guess it's just about working together and really actually doing that, starting conversations, starting member groups, having forums, and working out how we don't have to keep having this conversation every year, essentially. So yeah, I'd say that's the key thing.
And finally, from you, Jim.
Thanks. Just three things I would say very quickly. I think about building financial resilience. I mean, that's something that organizations should look at from their employees' perspective, how they can enable better financial resilience. Second is building confidence, and this is where I think organizations will have to spend more on training and development. One of the things that organizations will have to do far more than they ever did in terms of AI and everything is invest more in their people. And the third bit, which is very important, is the voice, the campaigning voice. We need to talk more about the needs of the younger generation and what solutions we can provide. I think it's not getting the focus that it should get amongst the various sort of political circles. So therefore, we need to shout out about it as well as a collective voice.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Debbie. And Rose, I can see, is there something that you wanted to touch on?
When you finished, I've got the details for what happens next.
Perfect. Well, thank you to everybody who's asked questions. Thank you for being such a wonderful audience. And a big thank you to our panellists. Thank you, Rose, Fatima, Louis, and to Jim as well. Thank you very much. It's been a joy and a privilege to host this panel. I hope you've got something from it as well. Of course, all of our cooperative staff are around if you want to have a chat. Let's keep empowering young people. Let's take something positive from this as well, because the future can be bright as well, but we do need your help as well. So thank you very much. Over to you, Rose. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you to yourself, Amber, because, if there was ever an example of some brilliant young people, we've got Amber, Louis and Fatima here, and I think they're fantastic, and the youth group. So, yeah, let's hear it for all our young people that are here with us today. Thank you. So we do break for refreshments now and networking in the exhibition space through the doors. You can see on the screen what's next, the local power plan, how the political climate has shifted, and what can we build instead as an interactive roundtable. We start back at 11:30. See you then.